Not all wrestling games are made equal, unless it's WWF Wrestlemania. No, not that Wrestlemania, we're not doing that again. This was a release that was exclusive to Europe in 1991 and featured some similarities to the WWF Superstars arcade game. However, aside from some in-game graphics and gameplay, that's where the comparisons end. This version of Wrestlemania was developed by Twilight and published by Ocean Software. It saw a number of different ports, including the Amiga, Amstrad CPC, Atari ST, Commodore 64, the ZX Spectrum, and DOS. Now, I never played this version of Wrestlemania growing up, but having gone through it for the purposes of this review, I can say one thing. This game is not easy. Wrestlemania, like any WWF game, has one major purpose: become the WWF champion. You can select from one of 3 wrestlers in which to attempt this feat: Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior, and the British Bulldog. The British Bulldog is a fun inclusion and is likely because he was the biggest European star in the company at the time. Outside of more recent releases, Davey Boy Smith doesn't appear much in wrestling games over the years, so as someone who was a fan, it was nice to play as the Bulldog. Not that any of the aforementioned 3 wrestlers give you any advantage over the other in any way. All of the ports play the same way with just 2 major functions. You move the wrestler with the joystick and waggle it side to side as fast as you can to get the upper hand in a grapple, and you have an attack button. That's it. The AI in this game does not mess around. It comes at you, and unless you're insanely crazy with that joystick, you'll have a hard time locking in a grapple to pull off your one and only move. Yeah, aside from the kick or the punch or the occasional drop kick, you have one grapple move. The only other attacks in the game are either from coming off the top rope or an awkward-looking chair shot. There's 5 opponents that you have to defeat in your quest to become the champion: Mr. Perfect, the Warlord, the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase, the Mountie, and the champ, Sergeant Slaughter. Can we talk about what an eclectic group of opponents this is? The game came out in '91, which was the same year as WrestleMania 7. That event featured 15 matches with a variety of superstars. The funny thing is, one could argue that the computer game could have featured bigger names than the Warlord or the Mountie, who were mid-card talents at best at the time. Why no Undertaker, Jake the Snake Roberts, or in one of the biggest storylines at the time, and for the second straight game, no Macho King Randy Savage? I'm sure it all comes down to money, but we're splitting hairs. Having the Warlord and the Mountie, I'm fine with that. Now, before the start of each match, there's a little smack that gets thrown back and forth between you and your opponent. Each wrestler gets to select one of 3 unique responses to each opponent, though it's only for aesthetic. Another thing to do in between loading screens leading up to the match. Some of the responses are fun, albeit a little bit out there. As I mentioned, this game isn't very forgiving, and the only version I was able to make it past the first opponent, Mr. Perfect, was the Amiga release. In fairness, I spammed the heck out of the computer because the sad reality is twofold. 1, this game is damn hard, and 2, if you don't spam them, they'll spam you. You get 2 continues in your quest to the title, and while you start each match with a little more energy than the previous bout, when you continue, you do start with a full health bar, which is nice. Needless to say, I made it all the way through to the championship match against Slaughter, and was disappointed to say the least. The WrestleMania belt? WrestleMania belt? Where's the WWF Championship? It's odd to say the least, but not a deal breaker because once he defeats Slaughter, there's no championship celebration. Slaughter says he'll be back to get his belt and then... game complete. There is the added touch of the newspaper, but look at this mess. Ultimate wins WWF. Slaughter defeat. Twilight reveal Fizzy Jelly. What the hell is that? At least there's a nice play on words with Ultimate Warrior Slaughter's opposition. Ultimately, there's not a lot to WWF Wrestlemania. The computer ports don't offer much, though in their time, the game was very well received, with British magazine Your Sinclair giving the game a 91% rating. Objectively, the game wasn't bad for its time and graphically it looks good. The controls and wild joystick action leaves a little to be desired, and outside of a nostalgia kick for some, or the experience just to play it for yourself, there's really no appeal to go back and play these games. Still, they're fun for a quick romp, and if you're ever up for some wrestling frustration, they're definitely worth trying for yourself.